Friday box office numbers for Shazam are out, or at least the sort of preliminary numbers that aren't 100% exact but are very, very close. And to begin with, Warner Brothers is kind of all over the place with how they're reporting Shazam. The short story of it is that the film was reported to have made $9.225 million for Thursday and before Thursday, which is in the video I made yesterday. I'm sure I'll put it at the end of this one if you're interested. But what really happened was it made $5.9 million on Thursday, and it made $3.3 million in the more advanced screenings it did a couple of weeks ago, which is perfectly normal. But for whatever reason, Warner Brothers isn't really adding the $3.3 million to its weekend opening at this stage. So depending on what articles you read, some of them don't even mention the $3.3 million, and some of them do, and they don't put them in the totals. But, I mean, it's $3.3 million. It has to be added in somewhere. It should definitely go in the opening weekend, but somewhere it has to be added in. But right now, the real amount of money that it has earned in the North American box office as of midnight Friday is $23 million, or $23,825,000 approximately. So kind of close to $24 million. But depending on where you look, you get numbers all over the place. So first of all, there are places saying that it earned $20,500,000, which is the $23 million minus the $3.3 million, which again, a lot of places aren't including this $3.3 million because Warner Brothers isn't including it. So that's one figure, is $20.5 million for a Friday. Then you've also got $14.6 million for Friday, which is the real amount of money earned on Friday. Then you add back in the 5.9, and then you add back in the 3.3, or some combination of that, and that takes you back to the $23.8 million. So it has actually earned $23.8 million as of midnight Friday. Most other films would call that their Friday box office opening day. They'd say that that's it, we get $23.8 million. But again, for some reason, the reporting right now is a little bit all over the place. Now, Box Office Mojo, where a lot of people look, hasn't got any information yet. They're a little bit slower, or maybe they're a little bit more careful with putting the data in. But it'll be interesting to see what Box Office Mojo does with the $3.3 million. But now that we've got some actual real figures for Friday, we can go about making an actual accurate projection for the box office opening weekend. So yesterday, based on the $9.2 million from Thursday, I said it'll get somewhere around $70 million. Okay, it did have a low mark if it kind of collapsed of something like $55 million, but that wasn't a real $55 million. That was if the numbers for Saturday and Sunday completely collapsed. But nonetheless, I sort of projected that Friday would get around about $18 million, or it might have been $18.5 million, whereas what it actually got was $14.6. Okay, so it's around about $4 million off my extremely early sort of half guess, half calculation for Friday. So we've got to put this $4 million in and actually see what we can come up with for a much more accurate number for the total box office. So there's two main ways to go about calculating it. Okay, the first way, or a good rule of thumb, is that a film will earn about 50% more money on Saturday than what it earns on Friday. But that's got to use the real Friday total, not the bogus Friday total that puts the Thursday and all the other money in it. So we have the real Friday total, it's $14.6 million. So if we increase that by 50%, we get a Saturday total of $21,900,000. And then Sunday generally earns around about the same amount of money as Fridays. And so we put in $14.6 million for Sunday, the same amount that it got on Friday. And that gives us a total box office for Friday, Saturday, Sunday of $51.1 million. Then we have to add in all the advanced screening stuff, which is $9.225 million. And so we get a total of $60,325,000, so about $60 million. And another method we can use, the one I used in the video from yesterday, was I looked at the percentages of sort of similar films, how much they dropped from Friday to Saturday to Sunday and so on, and sort of calculated it that way. So if we use the actual total amount of money for Friday, the quote-unquote Friday amount of $23.8 million, not the 14.6, but all of the money that it has to date, and if we reduce that by 15%, so we say Saturday will be 15% down, we get around about $20,251,250 for Saturday, and then we can reduce the Saturday to the Sunday by another 20%, and that takes us down to about $16.2 million. And if we add all that up, we get $60,277,250. So still 60 million with both of these methods. So 60 million is a pretty good benchmark for us to start off with for the US domestic box office opening weekend for, I nearly said Captain Marvel, for Shazam. Now, a few places have calculated it as being between $49 and $51 million after they've used these figures. I think they're 100% incorrect, but that's what Variety and a few other places are actually sticking with. They're saying that it'll be between $49 and $51 million. Now, I'm not 100% sure if they're adding the $3 million to that, so they might be saying it's $3 million more than that, because again, this $3.3 million is being, I don't know, Warner Brothers is really the one that decides where to put the money out. The studios get to decide what happens, and for whatever reason, they're not bulking it up to the absolute maximum they can. They're sort of keeping the money back. They did a similar thing with Aquaman. I think Aquaman had some sort of Amazon Prime deal. They got some sort of money through Amazon Prime. I don't know how that worked, but they had several $1 million that they didn't bother putting in Aquaman's opening weekend as well. So I'm not sure why they want to make their opening weekend sound a little bit softer than they could, but it seems to be something that Warner Brothers wants to do. Now, there are some places going around saying that the buzz for Shazam is very good, and this may mean that the Saturday will pull in the same amount of money as the total for Friday, the big money for Friday, not the real Friday, but the $23 million. So if that's true, if it has a extraordinary amount of good reviews and good word of mouth, so it does better in ratio to what most films do, that means it'll get $23.825 million for the Friday, and the Saturday will get the same. So that's about $2 or $3 million more than my other calculations. And then if the Saturday's bigger, the Sunday will probably in turn be bigger than my original $16.2 million, or roughly to that number. So in total, we're looking at around about $65 million instead of the $60 million I calculated. So I think the $60 million calculation is a safer one to go with, but it does seem like most people agree that the film's good, the audience score is good, and the reviews generally are good, and there's not a lot of negativity going around this film. So if that's the case and word of mouth goes out, then Saturday may get bigger numbers than what you would normally get for a film based on its Friday numbers. And lastly, there are some foreign numbers out, but it's very difficult to really base anything on the foreign numbers. There's an article, I think it's from Deadline, claiming that in 55 foreign markets the film opened to $15 million. That's completely false. The $15 million comes from China. There was around about $200,000 from elsewhere. It might be from Vietnam. So China's open to about $15 million for the Thursday night. That isn't the actual Friday numbers, but really at this stage it's very difficult to do anything with the international stuff. And in fact, looking at Box Office Mojo right now, it looks like they have actually put the estimates in for Shazam. So they are saying that Shazam got $23.825 million, so that's good. And it looks like, yep, they're not putting the $3 million in there. So they have the total of $23 million, but they're not putting the $3 million in on Friday. So interesting to see where they put that money, if it magically appears somewhere. But that's what they're actually doing. So they are downplaying the actual opening weekend as per Warner Brothers, what they're doing. But if we look at Shazam's foreign section under there, they're claiming, if we look at Shazam's foreign section on Box Office Mojo, they're claiming that $44 million now has been reported from overseas, but they have absolutely no idea what country it's coming from. So they've got $200,000 from Vietnam, and they've got $44 million from somewhere, so not very helpful just having a $44 million sitting there. And on the numbers.com, they're reporting $15.45 million is from China, and they're saying there was another $950,000 from elsewhere. So a little bit of conflicting reports. Normally, they actually get it right between the two of them, so the $15 million probably is from China. Who knows where this other $30 or $25 million is from. Who knows? But the Chinese money, that's from Thursday, so this definitely isn't Friday's money there. There may be another 15, who knows? Now, $15 million from China, is that good or bad? It's very difficult to tell. It's very hard to know. But China has been trending to big stuff this year so far, and the Chinese and the South Koreans are loving a bit of the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. They're also loving a bit of Aquaman, so it's possible that they could like this film. Obviously, it's possible they might not like the film. But seemingly China's had a big scandal at the end of last year where their two largest or two of their main film producing studios have actually gone bankrupt due to some sort of corruption. And so they're actually having a problem filling their theaters with movies. And so it sounds like they're actually desperate for films, and it may be a bonanza year for all of the American films. So you may look at a larger than usual Chinese box office money for all the films this year. So it's already been pretty good for Captain Marvel, and it's been pretty good for Aquaman. Maybe it'll be pretty good for Shazam. So again, I'm predicting $51 million for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the $9 million added on top of that for somewhere around about $60 million for the opening weekend. And again, some places might have the $3 million in it, they might not have the $3 million in it, and they may have the 5.9 in it, and they may not have the 5.9 in it. But the total box office gross for the US domestic market as of midnight Sunday, I'm saying will be around about $60 million. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.